You could say Santa was that lookout, but somebody might recognize the Santa because his beard wasn't there. Oh, he's a Grinch. Now that really amplifies my Christmas.
He'll stand up for you.
That's great. Love that mask. Love that mask. Looks like me in the morning on a regular day. All right. Cool. Thank you.
That was hard.
And then we go over here, and this is actually the real Santa, because this guy has a full beard. The only thing wrong with this guy is everybody knows that Santa is a snowboarder, not a skier. But this guy is running around posing as Santa Claus, but we know Santa Claus is a snowboarder because it's a lot easier to carry the bag when you have only a snowboard on.
That's the nice thing is you can easily.
Okay, so we're going to do this video on the things we see that people bring boards to the mountain that they borrowed from friends that are going to have no bearing on them having a nice day because they're improperly set up, they're the wrong direction, the bindings are not proper, they've not been adjusted properly. They just borrow a board from their friend, and their friend's left foot forward, but their right foot forward, and they end up with a board such as, if I come around to this side, Ted's board is set up as a left foot forward. That's this binding right here. So his board could kind of get away.
Jim, that's right.
Could kind of get away with the way it's set up because his board is more or less twinned. He's got the same amount of nose as he does tail. So he'd get away with that. Somebody came in with it wanting to be one foot or the other because there's no difference between nose and tail. My board coming over to the amplet is set up with a right foot forward at the present time. Right foot forward, so I've got a longer nose, and that's my lead foot there, and that's my rear foot. But also notice that the back of this board is tapered and shorter in length from binding to binding. So therefore, this board would be riding in reverse with the tail of the board in the front. Improper way to ride the board. It would make it easy to start a turn, but it would make it harder to finish the turn. So the bindings have to be set up for the forward foot that you would put in first and slide on. And this is one of the biggest problems with people coming in to the area for lessons. We're going to go into another area of problems with a snowboard. Ted's going to move the bindings on my amplified board to a wider position. Just set it down there as if it was screwed in and move that to the back ones. This also happens. You get a woman come in or a young child who comes in and their bindings are set that far apart because that's how the other guy rides them. Yeah. They don't check it before they come. They just show up on the mountain. They're ready to go. And now they're going to end up doing, which are that close together that at this point in time, the poor little guy can hardly put his feet between the two bindings to skate along on the flat surfaces. And when it's skating off a chair, he can't get his foot in there in time to stand up and crashes repeatedly coming off of a chair. So that is a major problem also. So we're pointing out problems with things in the way they're set up. Another problem would be Ted's going to take my board and he's going to set those bindings till they are 0, 0, meaning they are straight across the board. That works very effectively moving across the board. So you can kind of show them with your hand moving across. So that would be tipping from toe edge to heel edge. It works effectively. But the problem is with a 0, 0 setting across, you're working against the outside of the ankle. So if you kind of show that with your hand as the outside of the ankle, but there's no rotation of the feet. So therefore turning, as Ted's moving his hands now, will be a little bit blocked by square ankles. Everybody please understand where we're going with it, because it does create problems. All right, so that's another area. Also, Ted, turn both bindings pigeon-toed.
Oh.
I've seen people show up out of a rental shop and with brand new boards set up by the designer in their shop with knock-knee positions such as this. This absolutely does not work. So therefore, when you show up at the mountain, you will have to take the time to take the screws out of the binding, bindings herself and the inserts on the board, whatever. A normal position could be, Ted, show a duck position.
Okay.
Duck position, that's pretty drastic. That's like a 30-30, but it's still ducked. And that means that both toes are turned out the same amount. So for a twin board, a duck position is pretty good. It's pretty much what Ted has here, but he has a little bit more turnout on his rear binding over here than he does on his lead binding. And that is because he doesn't bear weight the same on his rear binding because of an injury to the leg. So sometimes that's okay. An alpine type setup could be more.
Ooh, yeah, right.
It would be more in this way. And you see this setup that Ted's just moved there for you. That setup you would see on hard boots and hard plate carving type boards. You see occasionally somebody who sets up an alpine, their regular board this way, but not so much. So for me, for example, this year I used to go with a -15, +15, and a -15, something like that. But now I've taken the back leg because of an injury, and I've come closer to the 0 line, which is about 15 and a -9 in the back. So it relieves a little pressure on my knee that is injured, which on Ted's board it would be my right knee because I am a left foot forward rider, indicated by the leash being on that foot. And that also is the way you told the shop to set it up. That's where the leash should be, on the forward foot. So I think we've covered all of the...
Again, things that we see that are strange, that don't help you. Here, in this case, the way these bindings are sitting, the straps are on the inside your legs, and which is extremely difficult to do more, and you're taking these on and off all the time. So this is not where this belongs. This belongs on,
such as it is here.
On the
always on the outside of the ankle.
Outside of the ankles.
Kind of like where your holsters on cowboy things. The guns are on your hips to the outside, not to the inside.
Right. You're not drawing from your crotch. You're drawing from your hips. So that's something else to look for.
Okay, how about something about the bindings that people forget to do?
Okay, this is one of my boots. This is a size 9 boot. If I was setting up this board for my boot, I want to center my boot. I want to have the same amounts of space, edge, boot, toe, and heel. Same thing.
So if the boot was larger, you'd have equal hanging over on both sides.
Yeah.
If the boot was smaller, you still want it centered.
If because the binding is set a certain way and my foot size is different, and I end up with something like this where my toe is hanging over the edge, that's not a good idea.
Where do we see that a lot? Coming out of rental shops.
Yeah.
Because the guy has a very large foot, they only have one size binding to put it in. They put it in there, and he ends up with a huge toe overhang. Which if they were actually tipping the board and riding a lot, could knock them down.
Yeah.
But the one we see more often than not is further back, would be an overhang to the heel side.
Which makes,
kids, ladies, people with small feet.
Yeah. Which makes a toe side turn, or to activate the toe side, more difficult, more time.
Sometimes impossible.
It's when you're around, and the heel just boom, it drops too easily sometimes, or it's dragging, or it's just in the wrong spot. Again, the boot needs to be centered over the board so you can appropriately pressure your heel and your toes, etc., to make these edges work at the same time.
It's too hard to adjust my binding.
I think I turned it.
Okay, so basically that was our rundown on bindings being mismounted, how they're mismatched. It's up to you guys on the other side of this camera when you show up to a mountain to have done all this stuff at home or in the shop before you get to the mountain if you want to have a good day. If you want to have a bad day, show up with all the problems we just showed you, and you're going to have a bad day. And you're really going to be mad, and especially if the weather is cold and you have to work outside on a table in the weather instead of in your warm house. You will wish you had done it at home.